If you're a freelance artist in 2025, I bet you don't have a capabilities deck, so I'm going to show you mine, and hopefully you can learn how you can maybe land some more jobs in 2025 as a freelance artist. So a capabilities deck is basically a deck that you can share with clients, potential people who you can do a project with, and just says what you do, what your portfolio is, and a general idea of like how much money you should be expecting to pay if the client is to book you on a job. So in my capabilities deck, I use a software called Adobe InDesign, and it looks kind of like this. And the reason why you use something like Adobe InDesign is because it allows you to create sort of like presentation documents, but every single image that you add, you can right click, go to hyperlinks, and go to edit hyperlink, and you can add a link. So then when you export it as a PDF, if I go in, I can click on this image here and be like, hey, look, here is my reel. Here is my thing. And it does the thing, and it's very easy for clients. So then they can understand, hey, this is what you do, this is what I do, this is the things I can do for you. In addition to that, it's a good place to house your portfolio, because then you can include links to all of these projects or all the projects that you make, and then you can make it very easy for your client to understand, hey, these are some of the other successful projects that we've done with some of the other clients that we've worked with. Now, I've adapted my presentation and my capabilities deck over the last couple of years to also include not just board game trailers, because that's what I do, that's my line of work, but I also am including stills of other services that most people don't think about. So when you're an artist, you should really think about like, hey, I do maybe motion graphics, but I can also do thumbnails for YouTube videos. I can also do your e-commerce images for 3D motion graphics. I can do the thumbnails for your projects, so then when your client posts the content on social media, they have a really good looking graphic and they can see a wide breadth. So in addition to these really awesome trailers that like I have also worked on, Vimeo, oh come on, there we go. In addition to all the trailers that I have worked on for some of my previous clients, they can also see that I do other things that aren't quite as exciting. And that's important for a client to understand, because they can learn, hey, like, oh, I don't have these giant projects that I have, but maybe I need a little additional help. And then I sort of set up my capabilities deck to include the really epic stuff, followed by some mediocre stuff, followed by some even cooler but also just straight up stills stuff. Now, most exciting thing I want to show you here is this, the menu. Now, most freelancers and most like small businesses or even like big studios will be like, don't have a rate sheet. I think it is case dependent on the industry that you're working with. So I do have a rate sheet, and I'm putting it publicly on the internet as of January 30th, 2025. These rates may change in the future based on inflation and as my skills get better, as my business grows, etc. But this rate sheet is reflective of all the past projects I've done, and I generally have an idea of how long things take me, and as such, I create this menu for my clients that I know in the board game space, so then they can understand, like, hey, this is what you can expect to pay when it comes to working with me. So let's say, for example, e-commerce images. So like games, product renders, etc. This lives somewhere in the $500 to $1,500 range, depending on the complexity of the project. Let's scroll up. Hey, look at these e-commerce images. This is a much simpler game. It's a box, it's a bag, and a small deck of cards. This might live closer to the lower end if we're just doing a still. But let's say we want a board game trailer, for example. If I scroll up to, hey, look at all these different board game trailers. This was a live action shoot that I did that was a little bit on the lower end. This trailer was for a big brand. Obviously, Marvel is there. And as such, it was a higher budget project because there was more risk involved. Scroll down, back to the rate sheet. Those board game trailers ranged in prices of this or more, depending on the ones that you look at here. So All that being said, I include a rate sheet in my capabilities decks moving forward so that when my client is scrolling through this PDF, they have a general understanding of like, hey, this is the work I do and it might cost this much. Now, the other page that I've integrated into my capabilities deck, in addition to this rate sheet, is this page, the money stuff. This is basically saying, hey, how much on average do you typically spend on a project with a client with me? On average, sometimes I have done projects that will be in the $5 to $10K range, but generally speaking, we target a minimum of $5,000 to be billed with a client within 12 months of working with them. So we could take on 5 projects at $1,000 over 12 months, or we can take on one big epic trailer for $5,000. It really depends on what the client's needs are, and you need to hash that out with your client. But using this principle, the average annual budget spend with our partners, whatever business fluff that means, it's basically taking a principle from the book, get the book, by Blair Enns.
A few moments later.
The Win Without Pitching Manifesto by Blair Enns. And basically, this fancy budget annual spend terminology is also known as the minimum level of engagement, as in the minimum amount of money we as an artist, as a freelancer, need to receive on a project or working with a client over 12 months before we can be like, hey, this is worth our time. Depending on where you're starting at as a freelancer, you may need to have a much lower minimum level of engagement, the money stuff, but generally say like, hey, if I'm a freelancer and I know that like I will lose money if I make less than $250 a day, if I need to just make that much, $250 a day to live, I know that, hey, my minimum level of engagement with a client should be like, hey, $250 for a day of work. Could be that. All that being said, I wanted to share this capabilities deck because it is also including like, hey, this is the cool work that we do, the portfolio stuff, in addition to how much a client should expect to pay should they choose to work with you. Now, in addition to the portfolio, the money stuff, I also like to include the work stuff. How do we do it? What do we do? What are the skills that we have as a freelancer? And for me personally, this is all the software that I have touched because I have ADHD and cannot stay focused on one single thing. So that's a me problem. But I include this because, hey, I do use After Effects and Illustrator and Premiere and Unreal and Blender and Cinema 4D and. But I also have colleagues who I sometimes hire and bring on to other projects to help me with that work. Now, all that being said, I do believe that when you enter some sort of business sort of transaction trying to make work, we are working with people, and I think it's important to connect with other people who are doing business stuff as just human beings in general. So I do have a quick little, hey, this is me. I've presented at NAB with Maxon. I also go to the Ren Fair and pick up heavy things with a barbell, and I also bake bread and go to Disneyland sort of thing. So all that is to say, this is me. This is my capabilities deck. Let's make some cool shit. And I am happy and excited to share with you that linked in the download link in the description down below, there's a download link to my capabilities deck template using Adobe Illustrator. InDesign. It's Adobe InDesign. I'm so sorry. Guess what? That capabilities deck is also going to be free. So with that in mind, if you are interested in it, you can find it down there. The only catch is you are entering my email list to potentially receive marketing emails from me at some point. Like my podcast that I'm also making. I'm making a podcast called The Creative Adventure. So, link in the description down below for all the fun stuff if you want my capabilities deck. But just so you know, it's 10 slides. It's 10 slides of this is what it is, here's my stuff, here's more of my stuff, here's more of my stuff, more of my stuff, how much it's going to cost for probably your project, how much it probably will cost over the next year. This is how we do it. This is who am I. Let's make some cool stuff. So, I hope this video was helpful on the freelance side of things, and if you learned something, let me know in the comment section down below. Questions, comments, concerns, whatever else, comment section is down there for that as well, and I will leave you with the final tip. Eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, and you'll make some gains. Like this unicorn. Look how gained this unicorn is. Okay, bye!